You know, I really got into it from watching shows like Unsolved Mysteries. That was my absolute favorite, because there's nothing creepier than Robert Stack. And so,
Oh, no, not at all. I made you probably focus a lot on Brushy, but it's okay.
no, that's actually great because Brushy is one of my favorite places to investigate, and I just think that's so cool that you heard that story from them, and
And it's you!
yeah,
What?
crazy. And then now to hear those stories about how they actually had the murders in the cafeteria, it's just mind blowing.
Welcome to the dark side of travel. So you've dared to come jaunt with me. Thank you. Let me introduce myself. I'm Courtney, ambassador of dark and paranormal tourism for Haunt Jaunts, a destination for restless spirits who dig hauntings, true crime, horror, Halloween, and weird days. I'll be your host and guide for this listening adventure. Looks like we've been cleared for takeoff, so buckle up, sit back, and enjoy the ride. Hey everybody, so you might have noticed with me, well, if you're watching, because I'll post this on YouTube, if you're listening, you're like, what the hell are you talking about? It's just you talking. But with me today is Miranda Young.
Yes.
Okay, good. For a second I thought, oh my gosh, I don't know if I have her right last name. But so do you just do ghost biker explorations or ghost biker or?
Well, the web series is Ghost Biker Explorations. They call me Ghost Biker just because I hunt ghosts and ride my motorcycle. But I added the explorations so that it didn't. Well, because I'm out exploring different locations, but also because that way it could kind of set the episodes that I share online apart. So it's the explorations of me on my motorcycle.
That's awesome. Oh my gosh. And so my very, very, very first question for you is what's scarier? Riding in traffic with crazy people on your bike or ghosts?
Probably in traffic. Yeah, that is a very good question because, it just seems like people don't watch. And, just like they don't listen very well sometimes whenever you're dealing with the paranormal, people don't watch when you're out on the street.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. And so have you ridden your whole life? Did you grow up doing it?
I didn't. My parents were never into motorcycles or anything. Where I come from, most people ride ATVs and four wheelers, side by sides. We've got some really big adventure parks there. And I always grew up. The only two wheels I was on was a bicycle because mom and dad was never really into it because there was so many accidents and stuff with people on ATVs. And
Oh,
so, yeah, but I always had a desire. I wanted to ride since I was 4. One of my favorite toys as a kid was a little Hot Wheels Sportsters. Yeah, so I said one day I was going to ride, and I started riding just before I turned 30. So I've been riding about 10 years now.
you're somewhere around 40?
I will be 40 this year. Yeah.
Wow. You don't look it at all. So that's
Well, thank you.
good. It must be all that fresh air
That's
with,
what it is. It keeps
well,
you
you've got a
young.
helmet on, right? But
I
still,
do.
it's the fresh air going around there.
It is. I always wanted to ride, but I really got the opportunity when I was 29. I thought, I want to do this, and so I went and took the safety course and ended up getting my license and riding. So,
I love
and
that.
I stay on the bike ever since. If there's something you want to do, I talk to a lot of women who are just learning to ride or are actually afraid to ride. They've always wanted to, but don't really either know how to get started or are afraid to. And my advice is, just do it and go out, find, a nice, safe place to learn. But if you've always wanted to, just be mindful and go out and do it.
That's awesome advice. And I love that it was in your blood and you followed your passion.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So, and then now we know how you got on your bike. And for those who are listening to this, we're not live, but this is gonna, when I put it up. So for those who are, if you're listening right now, instead of watching, Miranda's in a really cool garage that she's kind of got set up to, I mean, I guess it's for your bike and probably where you work on your bike, I assume.
I do.
But she's also got her Ghost Biker Explorations banner in the back.
That's right.
Oh, it's so cool. That logo's rocked.
Thank you. Thank you. I actually designed that myself. In my adult day job, I am a marketing director and graphic designer. So, yes, so all the stuff you see on there as far as the ads and different stuff that's put out, I do all the design and promotion work myself.
Dang! That explains, I mean, I thought maybe you hired, but it's you.
It's me. Yeah.
You are the pro in multiple. You wear many hats.
I do. And, that's what's been so cool about this project is, I'm very blessed to be able to have the opportunity or the knowledge to be able to do some of this stuff on my own. And so it gives me a lot of freedom to be able to do that. And then also to do things kind of the way that I want to do them. And, it's been really fun doing that, starting it from the ground up, starting it from scratch and seeing it grow into what it's grown into.
That's awesome. And what about, how did you get into the paranormal? Like, how do you merge these two passions?
Well, like a lot of people say, they've been in the paranormal for a long time. I've been into it since I was a kid, but, I really got into it from watching shows like Unsolved Mysteries. That was my absolute favorite, because there's nothing creepier than Robert Stack. And so I can remember getting creeped out by that as a kid. And so I always had, that curiosity for the paranormal. And my grandmother, who was, she always told me stories about growing up in the Appalachian Mountains and the mountain haints, and so she shared a lot of those stories. So between that and then just being curious about it, I did what I could to further my knowledge in it as far as reading a bunch of folklore. And, I'm really into just the smaller, lesser known places that just have this, the stories that a lot of people haven't really heard, or maybe the people in the local areas have heard rather than, nationally known. Yeah. Exactly. And so, so about 10 years ago, I joined a team, and I was approached by the leader of that team because of my background in photography. We actually worked at the same place. He worked in HR, and he saw my resume and that my background was with Olin Mills photography. So yeah, so he sent me some pictures. He asked if I'd be interested in looking at some pictures to maybe try to debunk some of the things that they had found on investigations. And so it just started as a couple pictures and grew into a lot of pictures. And so to pay me back, he invited me on some investigations. And of course, like a lot of folks, I had seen on a lot of the paranormal entertainment shows the different, investigations, everything from ghost adventures to ghost hunters. And so I was really intrigued about actually going on a real investigation. And I had a lot of luck, had a lot of activity occur during our first investigation. And so they invited me on another, and then I joined the team. And so I found that, we would do a lot of residential, and then we would also hit a lot of the more known commercial locations. And so through that, I ended up on the weekends and such doing a lot of traveling on my motorcycle, and I would just kind of go and research and seek out these lesser known locations when I wasn't with the team. And so I was doing a lot of that pretty much about every weekend.
Ooh.
And so I was talking to my friend who's a videographer, my co-producer on my show, and he was like, why don't you document this through video? A lot of people might be interested in it. And then I was getting a lot of interest in my photos that I would post online. A lot of people were saying, what's the story behind this? What's going on at this location? And so when I would post those pictures, I would try to tell a story behind it. So I thought, he's right. I ought to go and put these into video format and really tell the story behind it and show the investigation. So through that, I sat down and really wanted to decide what the best approach for releasing the episodes were, because I wanted to do something a little bit different than what some other investigators are doing out there. A lot of the time they'll go investigate a location, they'll put a video together, and then they'll just kind of release it. There's really no rhyme or reason as to why and when they release the video. I guess it's just whenever they get it done. So my goal was to set it up like a television show. My brain is always thinking marketing. And so I thought what I want to do is create these episodes that are, right around 20 minutes long, because that's usually about the average attention span of a person. And so 20 to 30 minutes, keep it to where, my philosophy is keep it like a woman's skirt. Make it short enough to still get attention, but long enough to cover all the important parts. So that was my philosophy in creating this. Was I wanted something where I would have enough time to actually talk about why I was at this location, talk about the town that I'm in, since I'm on a bike and travel is so important, and then actually tell the story as to why I'm there, and then show the investigation in the episode. So it's a challenge to get that down to about 20 minutes, but we still range between 20 and 40. It just depends on the location that I'm at. And then I wanted to release it around a certain time to where people would know, okay, it's 9 o'clock on a Tuesday night. I know Miranda's going to release an episode. So I looked at when my analytics were on my page when most people was watching, and that was on Tuesday nights at 9. And set it up for October, because October is the ultimate scary month. Exactly. And then just started releasing different types of advertising to promote it. I actually didn't tell anyone when I was doing the first season, other than, of course, my co-producer. And really just because there was, it kind of helped not have a lot of pressure, because people didn't know about it. And then about a month before, I started advertising by doing countdowns, media drops, and released it. And it had some really good success. Surprised me with it so much to where I was spending so much time doing this that I stepped away from the team, because I didn't feel like I was able to. I did a whole lot with the team. I did their marketing and did their videos and such, and I felt like it wasn't fair to them to be committed to that role, and I felt like it also wouldn't be fair to myself to not pursue this. And so, because again, what's better than combining your two passions of motorcycling and the paranormal? So I thought I really need to try to explore this and see where I can go with it. And and then after the first season took off so well that last year was pretty much nonstop work trying to get the second season together. So
exciting. And so did the second season come out yet?
Yes, the second season dropped. We went ahead and did the October drop.
Okay.
And so the second season came out last October.
And then I might be getting it confused with Kristy. Is there a trailer or a teaser trailer? Is that for hers or for you guys?
I have all of mine is now. I think she has a teaser trailer that she put out as her cover, but yes, we did teaser trailers. The very first season, that was the first thing I dropped was a teaser trailer because I didn't even tell anybody, that I just said I'd been working on a big project, didn't even tell them anything about motorcycle paranormal. And then I just continued on the weekends to post pictures of places I had been, just kind of going on as normal. And then I did a podcast and then dropped the trailer after the podcast. And so last year we did another trailer, dropped it about a month out before everything was. Yeah, we really try to do a big build up because it really does generate excitement about what's coming up and give little kind of teasers in the advertisements and stuff.
That's cool. And so will your would the next one coming up be your third season?
It will, correct.
So you're already
rolling in that. And actually I did some filming for season 3 last year as well. So I have some stuff already, but you know how it is being an investigator, you can't stay away very long. So even though I've got some stuff filmed, I've got some coming up that I'm going to need to do this year. I've got some scheduled. So if they don't make it for this year, then they'll just carry into the next. And this year is actually, I'm doing some different things. I've expanded and doing not just the episodes, but also doing vlogs. I've been posting some survey questions on my page to kind of get a feel for what the people who watch my episode, kind of what they like. Do they like the history? Do they like more paranormal? Just different things that just to kind of see what they would like. Because because some people want them to be longer, but I don't want to make them too long because you want to keep people's attention. Yeah. So
and is that on your Facebook page?
That's on the Facebook page.
Okay. Yes. And it would be Ghost Biker Explorations that people would find you there, right?
Yes.
And then are you on Twitter? I know you're on Instagram, but I didn't know if that was public consumption or.
It is. I am on Twitter, but unfortunately, that's the social media that I'm lacking in.
Yeah, me too. It's hard, right? I don't know why that one seems hard to me, but.
I don't know. I mean, Instagram is kind of obvious because, I take photos and everything. So it's easy. And I like Facebook because I'm able to really interact with people who watch the show. And I like being able to find out what people like and what I could do better and just kind of see what's out there. So that's why I really like Facebook because I am very active on there. Okay. And then, of course, you can see the episodes on YouTube as well.
Oh, that's right. I'm glad you brought that up because that's the one I wanted to say where people can watch. But so do you put the videos also on your Facebook?
I do. I put it on both. Put it on Facebook. I put it on YouTube, and I also put them on my website.
Oh, you have a website too. That's right.
I do.
Okay, yes, that's right. So there's all these things I want to make sure to promote. See, I'm lacking in the marketing. So if you see it, just jump in there with your.
Well, what's really cool is the second season. I was able to really do a lot of marketing for it. Of course, people knew from the last year, but I actually did a podcast media tour leading up to it where I reached out. I find that a lot of the people who watch my episodes are bikers. And people who aren't necessarily, they're more history buffs and they're not necessarily into the paranormal, but they've gotten into it because they're like, oh, well, this is interesting finding out about these places. And so then they get interested in the paranormal after seeing the investigations. So I did a little experiment and I did some podcasts I did paranormal, I did biker podcast, which was really fun because I was talking to people who really had never gone on investigations, and then I kind of hit some general interest comedy or just general topic podcasts, and all of it was a blast and I got to say I met some really cool people because they were genuinely interested in what I was doing. And so it was a really cool experiment, and got a lot of people to watch the show through that. So I even went on a couple local radio stations in Chattanooga and promoted the show that way. So did this just whole, you know, media blitz when it came to advertising, which really paid off.
That's awesome. And that's cool too because I'm up in Nashville and you're down somewhere near Chattanooga, right? Or are you
Yes,
in Chattanooga?
I'm near Chattanooga.
Okay.
Yes.
And I have a funny story. So I don't think I've told everybody who's listening. I'm acting like they're gonna know. But Kristy Sumner of Soul Sisters Paranormal. Did I say that all right?
Yes.
Sometimes my mouth and my brain, one goes faster than the other. But she's who introduced us and said, "Hey, you got to check out Miranda. She's amazing." So I do this other podcast that I want you on also with my friends Dee Dee and Sarah on a haunt mess,
Hmm.
and we just had talked to Chris this week, and she was saying, you know, we were talking somehow Brushy Mountain came up. I don't know
Hmm.
what she brought up from them. So I was like, "Oh yeah, yeah, I've been there." So when we went, the guy, the guard, the ex-guard that gave us the tour was showing us or not well, he was showing at the same time, but he had a voice recording
Hmm.
that, or I don't know if it was on, I don't know what it was. I remember hearing it. I don't really remember. I remember seeing whatever he was holding, but now I don't remember what he was holding. But he said, so this lady came in here and she stayed overnight in this cell, and this is what she caught. And he played this EVP. And it really stuck in my head. Well, a couple of things stuck because first of all, it was a single lady staying the night by herself. I was like, that girl's got some cojones. And then and my husband at the same time was getting sick, but it wasn't like cold or flu. It turned out later, I believe he was having like some kind of reaction down there, which was interesting because once we left,
Hmm.
he got better. But it really hit him hard, and I didn't know it, but it was all when this whole EVP thing was going out. So
Uh-huh.
then Chris was saying, so when I started telling her that, she goes, "That's Miranda," and I was
Oh.
like, "You gotta be kidding!" So now you just feel free to talk about Brushy because that was awesome, and that place seems very wild. But I don't know if it was or if that's all you had, or I don't know.
No, I had a lot. I've actually investigated Brushy. This was my sixth time.
Wow.
Yeah, my first episode of season two was on Brushy Mountain. And I did a flashback to when I slept there and actually show that whole group of EVPs. You know, so a little bit of background on that. I actually grew up about 30 miles north of Brushy. And so I'm real familiar with that area. My folks still live up there, and I go and visit them. And so what's a funny story about that is when I was in high school, they would take the senior class to Brushy Mountain. Now, Brushy was functioning at that time. And so they would take the senior class, anyone that was over 18, and let them go to Brushy for a day, which is a very strange, kind of a very bizarre field trip.
Was that like a scared straight, like you're out of high school, don't go bad now or something?
I think that had to be what it was. But that was a very interesting experience because I was one of about five girls that actually went on that trip. And, you know, it was like, why not? You know, because again, I've always been fascinated by the different locations. And so went for the day, and that was in 98. And of course, they closed down in 2008. And so I always wanted to get in there from that point on and investigate and see, because you could, even when it was functioning, you could feel just the intensity of the place. And
Oh,
I'm not talking about just with the prisoners, but just you knew some stuff went down in there.
wow.
And so I did my first investigation there in 2014. I don't believe it opened to the public as a tourist destination until I believe it was 2018, mid 2018 when I think it opened.
I think you're
And
right.
so Yeah, so at that time, they didn't even have the restaurant built, or the distillery. They didn't have any of that done when I stayed there for the first time. And so I got a couple really good EVPs at that point, and I was with the team at that point. But I had a really good one in the hole. I was in there with two of the ladies that ran the paranormal investigations there. I was investigating with them, and we got a very intelligent voice when we were in there that said they're back. And there was no men in there, and he was clearly male, sounded African American, and that's what they say. One of the spirits that's in that area is a guy named G, that people will get EVPs from. So I got that the very first time. Well, we had so much activity, they actually invited us back for a Easter weekend experience. They wanted to experiment. They invited several of their favorite teams that had investigated and thought, let's see if anything happens over Easter weekend. And so since I'm from that area, I went the first night. They had 2 nights. And so I went up. The rest of the team wasn't able to go until that Saturday. And so I investigated then, and it was just myself and 2 other ladies that was on the property. Because as you know from being there, it's a big complex. And so the base camp area is right there where you walk in. So that's where we had the equipment set up. Yeah, so we'd investigated most of the night. And one of my things that I like to do when I go to different locations is I like to sleep in them. So I'll investigate as long as I can, but then, a lot of the time I'm traveling, so I have to get a little bit of sleep. And so I had decided, I'm going to pick a cell or pick a location and sleep a couple hours. And so those 2 ladies stayed back at base camp. And so we were the only 3 people in the entire complex. No men. And they were locked up inside there. So when I was walking around, something just called out to me, sleep in this area, So I thought the hole would be great for that. And so, yeah, I took my stuff and slept. I think I slept about 3.5 hours in there. And out of that 3.5 hours, I got a good solid 3 minutes and 12 seconds, I believe, of just what I would call Class A EVPs. The heavy footsteps, and I didn't know this was happening. So, as you know, inside of the hole there's a lot of echo, and the beds inside they're just metal cots. And so I took a sleeping bag. And the thing that I was honestly at the time the most afraid of was they have a lot of rattlesnakes up there.
Ooh, yeah. What time of year was it?
It was Easter, so it was in April.
Oh, are the rattlesnakes out yet then?
Not usually. It just depends on how warm it is, because here in Tennessee,
because it could be 90 degrees, or it could be snowing.
Exactly. We still get snow up into April. So yeah, I remember when we were touring earlier that day, one of the girls had said, we looked in, there's like a little air vent right there, or a little drainage vent, and there were bird bones in there. And so she said, oh, well, it looks like the rattlesnakes have been eating well. So I didn't even think about that when I was going to sleep in there. And I took my sleeping bag, laid it out on a cot. And again, you got to remember, this was before they had been doing all of the work. They've been doing a little, but they hadn't been doing too much construction. And so I took my shoes off and I got in the bed, and I remember I was sitting there thinking, I need to check my boots in the morning and make sure that there's no snake in there. And so that was what I was the most concerned about when I was laying in the cot. But of course, as you know, now they've really done a lot of work there at the prison, so it's not as big of a concern. But yeah, I really had no idea. I did keep kind of waking up a little bit, but when I went out, I was pretty much out for the most part after a series of waking up. And I think I list in my episode how long it was in between each of the episodes. I had a video camera on me sleeping and a recorder. And so that was where I caught all of that. And I caught everything from the heaviest footsteps I've ever heard. And I was wearing Converse tennis shoes. So, you know, I don't know. There was no one there that was wearing boots, you know. So, yeah, and of course the girls were asleep there at the base camp. So, and I caught everything from the heavy footsteps and something telling me night night apparently to you know, something that sounded like the dryers. You know, dryer doors have a distinct sound.
Yeah.
And that metal door closing. And there's something at one point, it sounds like a dryer going. And to be completely honest, you know, I had not actually even been upstairs. I didn't even realize that laundry was upstairs.
Oh.
Yeah, because I investigated the whole lot, and then I investigated death row, and then inside of the main prison the majority of that night. So yeah, so we got that, and then something that sounded like a ball being, I don't know what it was, but to me it sounded like somebody just kind of just bouncing a ball against the wall. Just that constant, just that, you know, so.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was, and I mean,
I think it was the night. I think
it
that's what the guy played, and I remember everybody. It was like you could feel the collective hush, and then the, you know, like because it's extreme. Like a lot of times with EVPs, I'm like, what do they think they hear? Not that one. That's an extremely distinct one.
That's probably one of the best EVPs that I've ever gotten.
Oh my gosh.
And after I heard it, you know, it was one of those things where, of course, I came back later that evening and investigated that night with the team. And then I've been back to Brushy a couple times since. I've not slept in there since that happened. But it was one of those things when I heard it, I instantly got that excited rush and then sort of kind of sick feeling a little bit because it was just so eerie, you know. And so it was unlike anything I'd ever really caught before. And I really feel like the reason, and I've caught some really good stuff while I've been sleeping there and at other locations, and the only reason I can really think that is because you know, it takes a whole lot to really kind of freak me out. I'm pretty calm about most stuff because, I mean, obviously you're going ghost hunting, so, you know, why get scared or freaked out when you hear something, because that's what you're there for. So a lot doesn't really bother me. I'm pretty level-headed about it, but I think I get a lot whenever I sleep because I feel like that's when you're in one of your most vulnerable states.
Oh, that makes sense.
You know, yeah, that's my reasoning for it is, you know, your guard is down. So I always have a video camera and a recorder on me, and then just kind of let it do its thing, you know, and see if the activity is any different or heightened at all whenever you're just kind of there, you know.
That's so smart. Would you spend the night alone again there, do you think, in the hole at Brush?
Yeah, I would. And you know, and I feel like what was really cool about this, so the Brushy episode that I aired for season 1 was actually a collaboration with Dr. Sumner and Soul Sisters. So, you know, so it was kind of cool because I went back and was investigating with all women, you know, and we did a little bit separate and then we investigated some together. But while I was in the hole, something clearly. I got 2 really excellent EVPs when I was in there that last time, which would have been last July when we filmed that. And it actually, there was something that said, I believe it said, come back into the corner. And it was clear as can be. We actually heard it with our own ears, and we were lucky enough to be able to pick it up on the recorder as well. So we address it in the video, and I go in there, and we actually get responses, and it was the cell I slept in. So it was pretty crazy. Yeah.
Wow. And was it, was it the very first cell that you slept in?
No, it was, so when you're going in, if I'm not mistaken, I think there's 4 cells, 4
I think
or
3
5.
yeah, something like that.
Yeah, mine was, so if you go all the way to the back, it was not the last one, but it was the second to the last.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I believe I was not. I mean, I know I was mistaken on that. I thought for some reason it was the very first one, but
No.
that's good to know. So now I
Yeah.
know. That's so
I
exciting.
actually, I should have tried to see which one, maybe ask questions about which one to sleep in. But honestly, I slept in the one that had the cleanest, cleanest cot in there. Because some of them did have feathers and different things inside of the, inside of the little cots that were. And when I say cots, there was no mattress or anything. It was just the frame.
The frame,
So,
yeah.
yeah, so they had stuff in the frame, and I don't know if that was from snakes or from what it was from. So honestly, I picked the one that was the nicest.
And what about the cafeteria? Did you have any?
The cafeteria was actually really cool. That was where I saw my very first and really, the best shadow figure that I've ever seen. And that actually happened that second night. On the second night, there were 4 other teams there. And so, because like I said, it was on Easter and they had invited.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, yes. And so, of course, I was kind of tired from where I'd investigated all night the night before. But yes, we were in there. And of course, nobody had cameras rolling at that point, which tends to be the way, a lot of
it works.
Yeah. And we had actually just gotten off of a live at that location. And so we got off the live and we were sitting there. And what's really cool about it is we didn't know this when it was actually happening. But we were sitting there, and of course, I always wear a mobile recorder on me because, that way I start it from when I get there, and then I have other recorders that I'll sit down in different locations. So I had mine on me, and then there was 2 other ladies that were kind of sitting. One was across the room, and we were kind of in a triangle. So we were actually able to kind of triangulate where this voice was coming from, which was very cool. So so we're sitting there talking, and we have a flashlight sitting up, and the flashlight had turned off. And so we said something about, do you like being in the dark? Because it seemed like it wanted to be in the dark. And we asked it to turn the light on. Of course, the light came on, and the cafeteria is real big. And they've got those pillars sitting there in the middle, and we had the flashlight sitting on a pillar, and we also had other tools to go with it. But when a flashlight's beam comes out, you've got really dark areas back in the shadows, and you've got where it casts the light onto the ground in front. So it's kind of got this ray of light that's coming out to it. And just before this happened, we got this voice that says, "Watch this." And it was just this creepy male, just, "Watch this." And we heard it really loud on mine, and the other 2 girls actually captured it on theirs. And we didn't know when this happened that we had caught this voice. And so right after you hear, "Watch this," you hear us all on the recorder just screaming and going crazy, because right at that moment, the best way I can describe it is it's almost like a little tornado on the ground, you kind of start to see this spinning of dust, just kind of just twirling around. And that was what I noticed, and several of the others. But you actually saw I'm trying to think if I can explain this to where it makes sense. When it crossed in front of the flashlight, that beam of light that was on the ground, you actually see a head and shoulders stroll across the flashlight beam.
Wow.
So all I saw of the actual shadow figure was the twirling tornado on the ground, but then you see the shadow of the shadow figure, if that makes sense,
Yeah.
in the light that was cast from that flashlight. And 9 people saw this. That's what's insane about it, is we were all just like, holy shit, this is oh my gosh, exactly. And I've never, I mean, I've never experienced anything like that, and for us all to see it. So on the recorder, you hear us go crazy, but you hear clearly this, watch this. And, again, we didn't know that until I was going back and reviewing evidence. So we were able to find, by triangulating the voice with the 3 recorders, that it was closer to where I was on my side. And I was over probably maybe 20 feet, I guess, from the flashlight, I guess. And it just, it walked right in front of it, and we saw it. But when it walked, it strolled, which was what was so crazy. I mean, for probably, I don't know, maybe 20 seconds, which is a long time and so for all of us to see it, and of course, it ends up just being a personal experience at that point when you don't have the video of it. But that's probably the craziest thing. And we had actually been listening to Native American chanting just before we got that. We were trying different experiments up there, and we were playing some Native American music just before it happened.
Oh my gosh. I think that is amazing. Like when we went, probably the cafeteria, I didn't have any experiences, and I'm not psychic or anything. I just felt a very strong something in the cafeteria of all the places. And even our guard was telling us about, a guy who got killed there and everything else. So I guess maybe a couple people died there. I just remember one was extremely violent. And
they did. A guy had gotten chopped up with a meat cleaver.
Yes, that sounded horrible.
Yeah. And what's crazy about that is when I went on the field trip there, they were actually going to have us kids eat in the cafeteria. And I was so nervous about that. And they actually had a fight break out while we were there. And so they decided to not let us go and eat in the cafeteria. We actually went to Hardee's down the street, but it was it was crazy. And then now to hear those stories about how they actually had the murders in the cafeteria, it's just mind blowing.
And did you know about the murders like back then, or was that like as it's come out that you're like, oh, okay?
Yeah, I had no idea about the different stuff that had occurred there.
Wow. Yeah, that was when, and I think it was like when we walked in, because it's kind of an impressive room, and it's got all those murals. And I thought, I think the thing that struck me was that's it. That was their art that they were exposed to every day. Did they like think? I think there's one of like a plantation home. Did they watch that and think, oh, I'd like to be there? Like, did they imagine them? Like, I just had a really intense reaction to that for some reason. And then he started talking, and I was like, what?
It's a really mix of I don't know, feeling when you go in there, because you have these beautiful murals, beautiful artwork on the walls in this very dangerous, kind of depressing location. And so it's a really mix of emotions that you'll feel in there. And I know when I go to a place, I try to sort of put myself, it's like, how would I feel if I was here, and if I was in and having to look at all of this, so I totally know what you mean about that, because it was everything from a plantation to wild animals.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And I think there was only one woman. I was trying to look, and real quick before our guy had moved on, and I think there was only one woman on a wall, and she wasn't very, suggestive or anything.
Exactly.
But I thought, oh my gosh, that's like the only lady that they would have to like really look at, kind of.
Yeah, and and since you mentioned that, I actually, I always try to come up with different kinds of trigger items and stuff like that. I actually, one of the times, I think it was the time before I filmed the episode there, I actually took a Hustler magazine in, because because I was like, I mean, they would barter for cigarettes, they would barter for porn and different things, and so it was one of those things that they didn't have. So I thought, let's see if that evokes some kind of reaction. Yeah. And I actually got some pretty crazy stuff through that. Yeah, we actually had and when I use tools, I don't rely on just one tool, because a lot of the time they can do false positives. So So I always try to have multiple tools going at one time, just so I can kind of verify, I'll have my EDI box that measures the pressure and vibration and temperature change and stuff, along with anything else, just so if a flashlight's going off, because I know different people have different feelings about the flashlights and the REM pods and everything. But if you're getting a change in pressure and things like that, it could suggest that there is something.
Yeah.
And so maybe not paranormal, but at least something is going on. And so I was using the periscope, which I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's actually, the design behind it is actually supposed to, it goes off based on static electricity rather than rather than like your, phones will set stuff off, like with K2s and everything. This is supposed to take out some of the error when it comes to phones, as well as human touch, that sort of thing. Yeah. So it's a neat little tool. I can't get it to work very often. So when it does work, it's one of those things where it's like, this could be something. But what was interesting about that was I had the book, and I apologize, I keep fixing my headphones here. They keep wanting to come out. They keep wanting to pop out of my ears.
They never stick in my ears either. I'm like,
No, so I apologize for anyone watching. I don't have an ear problem. I'm just trying to fix these headphones. But so what I did was I went in one of the specific sales, and it was one of the James's sales, and I had kind of opened the book, and in those books they've got everything from crazy pictures to articles to advertisements, and that periscope was actually going off, and the way it's set up is it almost kind of looks like a helicopter blade. So it's got a platform, and then the whole top is round with these points that come out on each side, and they're color coded. And so as it goes around, it will light up as it goes around. And so I was holding the book in front of it, and with that tool, it was lighting up. It was pointing with one of the different points on it to the picture it liked. So, and when it wanted me to turn the page, it would go, and like half of it would kind of light up. So I'd turn the page till it stopped. And I've never had it react like that before. And I've got that on video. I just haven't released it. But
will that be in season 3?
Possibly. Could possibly. And so I've actually used that as a trigger item in different locations. And just to see, when you go to somewhere, just, okay, could this be something that would trigger a reaction? And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but it's an interesting tool, and it worked really well at Brushy.
That's amazing. I love that. Oh my gosh. I just think that's so cool. When you're like, whoa.
Well, like I said, it's just kind of different, compared to some of the other tools that I've used. But, when a lot of people take cigarettes to a prison, or whiskey, or what have you, just trying to, and that's what I try to do when I go to these different places, is trying to think outside the box as far as, where am I at? What could these people like, and I also think of it as in, I'm very respectful wherever I go. And, and typically that's what you do when you go to somebody's house, is you bring them a gift. And so that's kind of the way I look at it.
That's a good way. I never thought about it like that before. Like, that's an awesome, that just changed my whole perception of things. I always get like not gun shy. What's it called when you like you see it's not stage fright, but like you meet a famous person, like tongue tied. I'm just like, I go, if like when I get in somewhere, I'm like I never know what to ask. It's so awkward. Like if I could write the ghost a letter, I'd be fine. But if I have to talk, I'm like, ooh.
Well, try sitting in a room by yourself with a porn magazine, showing it to mid-air, just sitting there showing it. That it creates a very weird
and story time with porn.
Exactly. So, like I said, I wouldn't typically just do that anywhere, but at that location, it seemed like something interesting to try. And I've actually tried that at a couple other prisons, and I've had my K2 meters go kind of crazy with it, but, it's definitely a different, type of way to, try to evoke a response. And but I know exactly what you mean. Sometimes it's really hard to, especially if you've not got a group of people with you, having that conversation. Usually it's either just me or just myself, and sometimes I film vlog style with just myself, and other times I have my videographer with me. And so he's not a paranormal investigator. So it's one of those things where I'm sitting there, I feel like I'm just talking to myself sometimes, and you just never know what you're going to get. So it feels kind of odd when there's nobody talking back to you sometimes.
Oh, yeah. And is it hard to do setup and all that stuff when you're just you? Or do you just kind of manage it differently than?
I do manage it differently because, because I am on my motorcycle, I tend to travel light. And I am also an old school investigator. A lot of what I get comes from EVP of just sitting and talking. I've got a military drop bag that I will carry with me that I keep some of my favorite tools with me. Like I said, I've always got a mobile recorder on me. And then I have other static recorders where if I'm in a large location, I'll drop those in, places where I think there could be activity. And then I've got some cameras that are battery operated, that are night vision, that I will also drop with a recorder. And that way, if I can't be there, at least the area is monitored. And that's why a lot of the time I do a lot of the smaller places, because if when they're smaller, I can cover them better. But I've kind of worked out a system to where if I'm in a larger location and I'm not collaborating, I have ways of hitting these other areas when I maybe can't be there. So I've gotten pretty creative with setup and tear down with just being me. I kind of have to modify from the way it was when I had a team. I don't, a lot of them have the cabled cameras.
Yeah.
And and that takes an hour of your time, and just set up and tear down. But I've created some kits that kind of help me to tear down and set up a lot quicker.
Oh, that's cool. Oh,
Yeah.
I was wondering about that because I think Kristy brought that up too, that they have the body cams and the battery operated. I'm like, that's so
Mhm.
smart. Like, but
Yeah, yeah.
that's
And
women
you
for
know,
you.
yeah, thank you. You know, I've not, I did use a body camera one time, and I had gotten this great body camera, and I was investigating at the St. Augustine Lighthouse, and I had just got it hooked up on me, and I was going to the very top to drop off, some equipment up at the very top of the lighthouse, and I think it's like 96 steps or something like that, and the damn thing fell off my shirt and fell all the way to the bottom of the lighthouse.
No.
Yeah.
Oh
Yes, and it was a gift for
no.
me,
Oh.
and yeah. So,
Oh
yeah.
no, I've done that. I had gotten a new little, hand. It was actually my very first one. I was so excited, and it wasn't even well, sort of for I was gonna tape some haunt John stuff, but not in an investigation. And I got mad or something. I didn't realize it was in the little carrying bag, and I threw. I mean, if you can imagine, sometimes I have a very bad temper, and I threw the bag, and right as I picked it
Oh.
up to swing, I was like, "It's not empty," and then it crashed against the wall, and I was like, "Oh no!" So that taught me I need to control my anger.
There you go. Yeah, I do wear a GoPro every now and then, but with my investigating style, I tend to do something that is, more of, and you'll see this in my episodes. I tend to do something where I kind of immerse the people into the situation. With Soul Sisters, they're wearing the body camera, but either, like I said, I either have my videographer following me or kind of filming myself. It's really kind of almost like it's it's on me, I guess, and showing a lot of the experiments rather than showing from my point of view, I guess. it's
Oh,
it's
okay.
almost like, yeah, being filmed, I guess, in second person rather than first person.
Yeah, and I noticed that, which kind of like right now, as you're saying it, clicked something when I was watching. I was like, sometimes it seems like someone's with you when I'm
Mhm.
watching, and then sometimes it is you. So I was a little confused, but now it all, and then I didn't even think about it till you just said something. I'm like, oh, that explains that.
Yeah, we actually set it up to be more of a investigation style where it was going to be vlog style, and he originally said, I'm going to help you film the shots that you can't get, like the ones on the motorcycle and that sort of thing, and set me up to do it more vlog style. However, he the way we did that was, when we went on the first investigation, he followed me and filmed, and like I said, he's not an investigator, and when things started happening with the dowsing rods and with the other tools, he was just like, oh my gosh, and he, and you, when you see that stuff happen for the first time, you kind of it's, you maybe can't control yourself, as in just like, oh my gosh. And then he realized, I'm not supposed to say anything. And we were going to cut that out. But I was like, no, I actually like that, because by doing it this way, he essentially becomes the audience. And so I feel like that they're able to really
Smart.
identify with him. Yeah, because he's not an investigator.
That's
So
super smart. Oh
yeah,
my
so
gosh.
so we kept that in, and he's been with me the last two seasons. Like I said, sometimes he films with me, and sometimes he doesn't. But for the most part, on the big episodes, he's been with me.
That is so smart. Okay, so that's amazing. And I just noticed the time and I was like, uh I've been talking to you for almost an hour and I'm like the whole attention span. But see, you've had my attention for the whole
Good,
hour.
good.
But then I was like, well, maybe I should like end this here
Oh,
so
you're
that
you're fine. You're fine.
and
I
then
know. What I was gonna say was, we're actually changing something or adding something this year with doing more vlogs, because through my through my surveys and stuff, I've had a lot of people that want to see more of the motorcycle and see more of the travel. So starting probably next month, I'm going to be having vlogs of my travel. They may or may not be haunted, but they're at least going to have an interesting story behind the different places. So I've been chronicling those, and like I said, some may actually have a haunted thing, but they're just going to be more short motorcycle ride vlogs that's going to kind of go along with the actual investigations.
Oh, so cool. So that's something for people to look for. And to watch that, will that be on the YouTube and the Facebook?
It will. YouTube, Facebook, and also on the website.
Okay. And so from the website, can they find, I'm hoping there's links to YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and
the videos are actually displayed on the website.
Awesome.
But they can go to YouTube. So anyone can find me if they just go look up Ghost Biker Explorations.
Oh yeah, you pop right up.
Yeah.
That.
Yeah. So and that was actually, because originally it was going to be called Ghost Rider. Me and one of my friends were kind of joking around because I was riding my motorcycle to an investigation, and I said, "Yeah, just call me Ghost Rider," after the movie.
Oh.
And so we were kind of joking about it, and she was like, I would watch that if that was a show. And so we kind of were kicking it back and forth, and so I was going to call it Ghost Rider Explorations, but I didn't want to get lost in the fray of the movie, So when people go to search for it, I wanted to be number one. Exactly. So so that's why I went with the Ghost Biker, and it just made more sense to go with Ghost Biker too and be original.
Yeah, that's awesome. You're kicking ass. I love it.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh. So now you've got a new fan in me, and then I'm going to set you up somehow with Sarah and Dee Dee if you would want to come talk with all of us.
Absolutely. I would love to.
That would be fantastic. Okay, and then I would love to get you, and you call her Dr. Sumner though, right?
I do when I'm referring to her, but yeah, she's Kristy.
Okay. So both of you, I would like to, come back and talk. And I think you guys are doing some joint stuff.
We are. Yes. So Kristy and I have worked on several projects together that we've released, and we've got several more. She's, we just found we have a really great chemistry when it comes to investigating. So I'm so excited to have met her and just pleased that she's allowed me to be part of her stuff.
That's awesome. And you guys seem to work very well together, so that's exciting.
Well, I'm glad that shows, because we do. And I'm really particular about who I will put myself in different situations, especially in investigating and such. And she's one of them that, I just trust wholeheartedly. And we have a very similar style with investigating. And so, yeah, it just works out great.
That's awesome. It's awesome to find a kindred spirit where,
absolutely,
like, wherever you can find the kindred spirits.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, it's been through the paranormal that I've, found and met some great people, yourself. And it just seems like I've listened to your Haunt Jaunts, or not Haunt Jaunts, but a Haunt Mess podcast. And, you guys just seem to have a great chemistry, yourself. So I think that's awesome.
We have something. I don't know what. We are crazy, but we have a lot of fun, so.
Oh, you can tell. You can tell.
That's awesome. That's why we want you on. It'll be a hoot.
Oh, it absolutely will.
Okay, so, well, I will thank you now for your time and remind everybody, Ghost Biker Explorations. You'll find you.
Yes, please, go on to Ghost Biker Explorations Facebook, YouTube, or my website at ghostbikerexplorations.com, or they can go and find me on Instagram at under Runaway Vixen.
That's it. I remembered the Vixen, but I couldn't remember. I was like, it doesn't have biker in it, but it has Vixen. I remember. I was like, that's a cool name.
It's actually comprised of two of my favorite bands, the Runaways and Vixen. And so, so that was kind of where, that came from. And it was me and a couple other girls that ride. We were kind of having some fun coming up with some names, and I was like, yeah, that's what I'll go by. And so I used that as my Instagram handle and had that long before Ghost Bikers. So,
I love it. That's cool.
Well, thank you.
Okay, so, well, thank you again, and I hope you have a great evening. And I don't know when this will drop, but I'm sure everybody's going to like it when they do, and I'll tell you.
Okay.
We can do all the promoing.
Well, hopefully
Get your marketing mind going.
Well, hopefully I wasn't on, all over the spectrum. I tend to,
No, not at all. I made you probably focus a lot on Brushy, but it's okay.
No, that's actually great because Brushy is one of my favorite places to investigate. And I just think that's so cool that, you heard that story from them. And
it's you.
Yeah.
What? That's
yeah, because we did. I was really lucky to work with Harley Davidson, the local one in Chattanooga, approached me about doing an event with their location, and so we actually did a red carpet early release party of season 2 there at the Harley shop, and so we had it set up like a whole. I had my merchandise there and had the bike and had red carpet. And so we had a band.
Wow.
Yeah, it was I think it ran from like 11 until 3. And so at 1 o'clock, we had everyone come in and they actually dropped episode 1, which was Brushy, and dropped that. We showed it there at the dealership. And then I did a Q&A after the session talking about it. And so that location was really cool because there's a road called the Devil's Triangle that runs up the hill from Brushy. So you may have seen it when you're going to Brushy. You go straight onto the road at Brushy, but there's a road that kind of curves up the mountain. Okay, well, that's the Devil's Triangle. Oh. And it's a very dangerous historical road. And so whenever I did the episode, which you'll see on the episode there, I talk about, I kind of parallel the, not really knowing what's around each curve and just how dangerous the road is to the prisoners, not really knowing what's going on around each, corner whenever, because it was just a daily struggle to survive at that location. And so, and that area is based on coal mining towns and the coal mines. And so the whole area of the Devil's Triangle, those folks that live on there have, worked in the mines, and as the mines shut down, their jobs went elsewhere. And there's even a whole town there. I think it's Fratersville, that's up there on the triangle, where there was a mine explosion and it killed all of the men in that little town except for 3 guys. So, there's just a lot of history just in that entire area. Yeah, so, so I talked about some of that because that's sort of how Brushy came about, was because of the coal mines and the leasing of the prisoners. So, we try to cover all of that sort of thing in the episodes, and then go into the paranormal, and as to why we're there. So it's just a real cool area, and so I'm happy to have talked about it.
That's fascinating. It makes me want to go back now.
Yeah. Well, that's good, So, and that's what I want. That's kind of the goal of my show. And you're welcome to use, any of this in your podcast. I think you're still recording, aren't you? Or
yeah.
Okay, good. But that's what's really the goal of my episodes, are being able to go in and bring awareness to people about areas that they may not have ever heard of before, or didn't really realize just how beautiful it is to say, hey, take a trip to this location. Here's something you may not know about it, and we're going to see if maybe it's haunted. So yeah,
That's
that's my goal.
exciting. I love it. I love it.